Just because Surre has been forced into situations where he's playing those long games, whereas Tizin is keeping his game short and sweet, straight to the point.
If Surre's win condition the entire time has been grinding on his opponents in very long games, which involves making a lot of guesses, tough decisions, risks, reads, Tizin is sort of the opposite of that. He's playing in a way that's attempting to be unpredictable. He's playing lists that are very unpredictable, and here we go.
The grand final, and it's going to start out with Froggy Sword against Mid Shadow. We've seen aggression dismantle Mid Shadow over and over and over and over again.
Now this is aggression that Mid Shadow can struggle with.
He's got a 1-2-3. And again, we talk about some of the things about Froggy Sword in terms of the stats that you get for the play points that you play is not actually that great. Meanwhile, you've got things like Luriel, Skull Beast, Kaiza, now Bone Chimera. You have a strong early game here for Surre.
However, Tizin being on the play here could make a big difference. Council of Card Knights in his hand, 2 copies. I've noticed that this card, every time it is related to a game or comes out on curve, it is how the game is run from then on. It gives Sword complete control of the pace of it for the short while that it's up.
The real kicker to me is just the combination of the Ward and the Bane. Occasionally that Storm helps in the sense of, you know, chipping down for a value trade, right? If there's a card that has incredible amounts of power but low toughness, that Storm can really come in handy. But kind of getting everything done in one go and having everything have 3 toughness is not that easy to deal with, and back-to-back, plus the Albert.
That is a lot of powerful tools Tizin has, but unfortunately, they're not coming out in a timely fashion. That is a very, very solid draw.
Palace Fencer.
Risking a pretty slow turn for there, but able to spend all of his play points into what will probably be a very clean turn 5 here.
What does he decide to do with the Frog? I have to imagine he's deciding between Face and Skull Beast, but I think it's probably worth swinging Face here, because you have Card Knights on the next turn.
Right. He could be considering he doesn't want to lose too much of this board to the Evolve next turn, and he could protect his other 2 bodies. And another consideration is Shadow doesn't really have... Nothing is different about how Shadow will respond to this Frog, whether it has 1 health or 2.
Yeah.
So he just goes for that trade, thinking if an Evolve just simply deals with one of these 2, then I'm going to keep one. Unfortunately, Luriel, who has been relevant this entire tournament for this very reason, is very easily able to clean this up.
Yeah. Yep. And gets the perfect situation as well. Faller with the higher power gets removed without combat interaction. Faller with the lower power gets swung into and get 2 off the top of that as well.
We're going to see, I think, the beauty of Card Knights here in that the 3-5 stat line is just able to deal with a barely injured evolved 2-drop in a very clean way. Now, it could be interesting which one he decides to evolve to make that happen, though. I've seen the Bane used very often for this reason.
Yes. I think that's fine. That the 3 defense, the 3 health there on the card is actually really useful. And it looks like he's going to preserve health on the Bane, swing the Ward into the Luriel.
Right.
I would imagine. Leave the Ward at 1 health.
The Ward is going to be the sponge for any damage that Surre tries to put in through his followers attacking. So if he throws in one of his removal spells to get rid of the Bane here, then he would have to spend the rest of his turn to throw in the other to finish off the 3-1 without having to trade a follower into it, which may not be worth it for him. Beyond that, he may simply just want to play Catacomb here.
Absolutely. One of the interesting things to think about is classically, Sword has had trouble filling the board, or rather not filling the board, but getting rid of your opponent's board, especially if they're swarming. And with Catacomb coming down and things like Bone Chimera in hand, it's very likely that Surre can get a very sticky board. But the benefit here is Tizin has a variety of options here. Council of Card Knights is very useful for both holding your opponent with that ward, as well as clearing with Storm 1-3s and having Bane. And having that back-to-back is really going to help here. Plus, off the top of that, you have the Albert ready to go for some kind of immediate damage out of hand if you just need a little
frog
extra.
just starts to go crazy.
Yeah.
So Tizin has a full setup here. He has every different part of his deck is working together at once. But Surre is actually at an advantage on board. And he has very, very powerful tools coming up.
Yep. It'd be very hard to remove any of this stuff. And you know that damage is barreling down your way, and so you're really kind of... There's no opportunity for Tizin right now to kind of set up any kind of aggressive play, because he has to play to wipe the board, because he's behind, you know? And this is a really bad spot to be in, especially when you're going first, right? You were on the play, but you're behind in board control, you're behind on health.
That is one of the risks of Vagabond Frog as a card as well. In exchange for how difficult it is to deal with, it is not dealing with the board here.
Yep. Oh, and it looks like he's just going to take the opportunity while he has enough health to kind of keep going here.
I'll find myself out on the road.
Is he going to
Is he going face with this?
Yes,
he's going face with this. He's deciding, if I can put up a board that Surre can't deal with, then I'm simply going to do it. Because I am not at risk of eating it next turn. Now, how much damage...
So he cannot remove any of the ambush, is that correct? 1, 3, 6... 10 plus 3, 13, so he has lethal in hand. If there's no way to remove any of the ambush followers, and I think that's going to be the case. Is there a ward?
Not that I can think of, not outside of the White King that we've been seeing out of Thane, but he doesn't have the time for that.
Yep.
So Tizin simply counts it out. He just says, I can set up lethal here, and I am not at risk of dying.
A very scary situation, and this is what we're talking about with just how close you have to cut it. Some of these stats are not that high, you know? And what was very concerning is I'm glad he finally found the chance to evolve that Vagabond Frog, but if he had to continue to spend evolves just to control board and couldn't get that Vagabond Frog evolved, he would not be able to race in the way that he's doing so now.
Now, something I'm finding very interesting about how the playstyles of the players are coming into this game is that Surre's deck could easily have, in this whole situation, still 2 Catacombs in his hand. If he could trade into these followers, then he could make this a grinding game that he's comfortable playing. But Tizin is playing in a way that doesn't allow him to play by Surre's rules. He says, you can't do that, and for that reason alone, I'm going to abuse the fact that you're trying to grind this out. I'm going to hit you in a way that you can't respond to, and barely, only with 2 health left, facing down a turn that he wouldn't have been able to survive, gets a third.
The important thing to think about here is the decisions between going for followers or going for face was incredibly important in this scenario, right? There was a specific turn where Vagabond Frog took down the for example, a Skullbeast right at the start.
I think that trade actually made a huge difference that game because it entirely changed how Surre would have to end up dealing with Council of the Card Knights. The sheer amount of pressure that put on board, the sheer amount of control it gave him of the pace of the game, just allowed Tizin so much lenience in setting up that lethal.
Yeah, so many great decisions by Tizin there, and they're very minute, right? It's not really like looking at Control Blood and having this big option, big option, big option. It's the small trades.
The very tiny things.
Yep. Tizin with the early win there. I think it got tagged onto Surre in error. Tizin should be 1 up here.
Right. Don't want to credit Surre with that one. But Surre is switching over to Blood. Tizin now playing his Wallet Rune. So this is a very slow opener for Surre, but not that slow openers are anything of a problem for Control Blood. Now this could actually be a repeat of the Control Blood mirror depending on how hard Rune can survive this. This is a lasting Control mirror.
Alright, Unica comes down.
All Surre can do here is set up a Blood Moon. But, I say that, this is a Blood Moon that helps him very much.
Yep. Swings. And this is interesting because almost against Control Blood, this little bits of chip damage aren't super relevant. I actually like that Tizin is running this particular rune deck against Control Blood. The problem is, even if this rune deck wins, you still have to face the facts of playing Bat Blood against this, right? And if any deck can do it, Bat Blood is pretty quick. It could maybe get Surre down before he has options to really start playing into, but we'll see.
Gosh, as Tizin plays such a heavy and slow deck, he still has a series of really strong early game plays. Able to use this Lyriel to accept the trade into the Righteous Devil, send the rest down. I think Tizin's main decision he's going to have to make this game is how aggressive can he really afford to get in a list that drops off into a control series of finishers in the late game.
See here. There's a lot of options in hand for Tizin.
You can play this in a lot of ways with the Scarlet Sabreur. So Tizin, playing a list that has a lot of card draw through finding the Witch of Sweets. It's a lot of card draw that comes out of follower effects. It leaves bodies behind as he gains resources. But I don't feel that this is a rune list that has a very great wealth of resources for dealing with some of the things that Control Blood will play in the late game. So he's playing this very aggressively, but also realizing Sada has a Blood Moon out, setting him the Vengeance will make no difference here.
Yep. I really like this, and I really like his allocating his Evolve Orbs. One of the big mistakes that we see people doing against Control Blood is they back down of their aggressive plan. You know, and I think oftentimes you play yourself into a situation where you couldn't have won anyways once you go late just because of the breadth of options that Control Blood has. So I kind of like this, but Scarlet Sabreur finding even more value here.
Tizin was committed to his aggression there, and Sada with his side here is just forcibly putting his hand on his head and pushing him back down under the water, saying, I will not let you have this. Not that much damage against me.
Yep, absolutely. So, now we're in a situation now. You have some options here. Oh, Mysterian Grimoire. He wants to draw. He's going to discard at the end. Oh, you're discarding Zeus?
I didn't know he had Zeus in this. But that's a discard all spells in your hand, so Zeus is kept.
Discarding all spells.
There are no spells in his hand. Does Tizin play spells in this deck? Have I seen one that I can actually remember?
Yeah, I don't actually think there is. So he's just got a ton of card advantage here. Going into a control matchup, that's actually very fantastic. The only thing is, and we've seen this in at least Control Blood Mirrors, where actually decking out is something very real here. But I think that there's enough options to kind of play confidently. He's got two Bahamut's, a Zeus, and he's still got aggressive options with Felice.
That double revelation has been drawn, but unlike against a lot of the more aggressive lists, Tizin is already done with some of his early aggression. It's not like Sada has been on the back foot all game and needs a board clear. He's found his answers. Now how he uses this revelation is going to be very interesting.
Alright. Mysterian Grimoire.
Mysterian Grimoires, now this is a really interesting card. I'm finding
not a lot of high stats, right? So.
Though it's still enough to deal with the Sabreur's body.
Wondering here, so Tizin was on the draw, so he's not going to get to the high play points before Sada is, and that Spawn of the Abyss is going to come down with probably no way to really remove it. He has Ector as a ward, so he can prevent that burst of having the Evolve Spawn of the Abyss swing in plus Procket's effect.
This is such an aggressive swing in.
Wow!
That is so
I love it.
much
I really
aggression
like it.
from Tizin. He is saying, forget this. I just need to remember I know what you are, Sada. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to slow me down, and the second I do, I am playing your game and I won't win. So Tizin just simply throws in all the damage he has.
And I think Hector? He needs to heal, right?
Yeah, the Righteous Devil is going to give him a fair amount of health back. He can still Diabolic Drain. So Sada, even in the face of this much pressure, keeps his cool, uses his healing options, has Temptress Vampire next turn. He's safe, but Tizin's hand is not being depleted for the amount of aggression that he's showing. He still has so many cards in his hand that can handle this late game.
That's really pushing the issue here.
I think we're seeing Tizin.
I think he needs to remove the drain for sure.
Absolutely. So the Hector plays him quite quickly, knows, alright, I have to start with that. There's no way I'm winning this game if you get to keep that. But it looks like this one's going to be over. As much as Tizin tried to throw it in, Temptress Vampire, just too much damage for him to deal with now. He wasn't able to get far enough, wasn't able to push Sada far down enough. So in the end, Sada got enough on board Banes that Tizin couldn't trade into.
And I actually really feel like, you know, I think Tizin played the right line of play there, at least in my mind. You have to go aggressive, otherwise, you know, you're just going to fall behind against Control Blood.
Yes.
And that probably, in my mind, is the most fearsome deck that Sada is feeling. Control Blood is very, very difficult. I think you almost need combo to beat it. You know?
Right. I think Tizin understands already there. Perhaps we could have seen him try with the amount of value that is in his rune list to try to play that more slowly. But I think Tizin made the right call to say, I have to play this for as much damage as I can, because if I play this for value, I might not ever find it again.
Absolutely. So, what this means is now Sada is down to 2 of his decks, Mid Shadow and Ramp Dragon. His Mid Shadow took the loss to the sword, so he has these other 2 options remaining. Tizin still has to win with his Bat Blood and his neutral rune. So that's kind of what we have laid out in front of us here.
And I actually find this to be really difficult matchups to call. I think it still actually comes down a lot to the players.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen Ramp Dragon hold its own against any kind of aggressive lineup. As long as it gets 2 ramps, 3 ramps, I think that's really the sweet spot where Dragon can reach its options fast enough to kind of not die, and then slowly try to heal through Sybils, Israfils, whatever it may be.
I've seen the Sybil particularly help a lot. When Tizin's Karabos blood is brought to the late game, the continual ticks of damage, if they're not enough, end up losing in the amount of healing that Dragon can do, and with that, despite the amount of resources that they end up picking up, I'm finding Dragon still just simply has the game-ending power to throw it out there, and I think that is part of how much polyphonic roar we have seen today. The ability to convert an advantage in life and play points into just a solid win condition, as powerful as that a lot of classes just can't deal with, is really just throwing Dragon forward here.
Yeah.
Now I wonder what this is, the announcement that they're having in between the matches here.
Yeah.
Trying to do my best to find the context. Here comes the tech assistant.
Alright. Here we go, the players just kind of figuring out what they want to do for the match coming up here, and
they both look so tired.
Yeah, it's been a long day for them. Shadowverse can be pretty exhausting, especially if you're constantly making really heavy decisions, turn after turn after turn.
And you can't get tilted if you still end up losing, if things just go right for your opponent.
Yeah. There it is, that's the scoreline that we're looking for. Tizin and Surre.
Mother, father, come on!
Prepare for
Alright, so I think these opening mulligans are going to be super important here. Opts to keep the Karabos. Kind of gets put into an awkward spot by drawing the Dance of Death here. Neither of those cards are going to be very relevant for your aggressive agenda here.
I suppose keeping the Karabos is Tizin's way of saying that he wants to keep what he knows is going to be a way to amass value versus Sada with the continual draws, and Shadow is devoid of any kind of healing for the most part.
Alright, he's got the 1 drop down, but Shadow has a plethora of options, gets the 2, gets the 3. Imagine gonna draw, okay, and he's got double 2s on turn 4 as well, so.
One of the big advantages of being on the play is just getting a 2/2 body out against your opponent's 1 drop. It's a very, very strong way to respond.
Go for the bats. Go for the bats.
Bonkai Bear is almost the same way of responding with these bats, with his own token generation.
Yep.
Ooh. Razor Claw, not what Tizin really wants to be doing here.
Yep. It's gonna be 4 points here. And the big thing about this this play here is he's swinging face, which I can kind of get behind, but it feels uncomfortable because there's no guarantee that you can continue this pressure.
Right. As far as I've seen, Tizin's current list does not make particular use of being in Vengeance, which is usually a backup of Blood. If their strategy isn't working at the beginning of the game, then maybe
they're not
can
too worried about losing a lot of health early on.
They can take it around from later.
Yeah.
But right now I think Tizin's in a rough spot. Even his turn 4 is not looking very strong unless he draws something really important here.
He's considering, he just passes. No play points, and I think Sada knows that he was probably considering something, as Tizin took a long time to consider that option. If he had no 3 option, he would not wait. But
so Sada here in a very, very comfortable spot. He has ample followers to have on board. He can play his Demon Eater out, find some more options to pass some time to these really powerful 7-cost cards he's going into.
The big thing to think about, and something that Exodium mentioned as well, is that Mid Shadow does not have a way to heal itself, and that's actually very important. So putting him down to 16 is still good work, right? It's not going to be undone as it is in Control Blood. It's something that will really stay in. Every single point of damage matters, especially when you're racing here.
We've seen the only defensive mechanic of mid-shadow for the most part in this tournament has been either Thane just giving you the White King to stop a single attack, or using Yaktar and Zombie Party to clear, but nothing to heal, and that is the most important thing to stabilize over a Karabos in this kind of deck. I think we're seeing it again where Surre has a certain type of weakness that Tizin has a deck that can exploit it, and if it does, he can go really far with that.
So Tizin has to get off the plan and start controlling board. As I think it's becoming more and more evident that he can't actually clear, or he can't actually maintain board and continue aggression here. That goblin off the top was not great.
It's not the best for him. I learned from watching the playoffs, actually, that they often call this turn, or that the Japanese have a name for this turn. When you go second, your first evolve turn is called the Tanpointo, or the turning point of a game. But Tizin is lacking in it now. He decides he throws out the Razor Claw. He has options for turn 5 and 6. He says, when am I going to play this? I'm just going to do it right now and have this Goblin. The Goblin's probably going to injure something enough that my Mountaineer Captain's going to be able to deal with it. But
that's heartbreaking.
Plays right into a little Soul Squasher.
That is heartbreaking right there. So, Gruff with Rush is pretty good.
No guts, no glory.
Means that he can continue to kind of mitigate and control the board without having to spend his evolution orbs, which you really want to be spending going face. But the big problem is we are now at that 7 play point territory. Karabos Evolve is going to handle any kind of big body here, but Thane in hand into Ector is absolutely devastating. One plays into the other very, very nicely because you not only fill out your board, but you also gain a lot of opportunities for shadows. And you also continue to put chipping pressure down onto your opponent. And while Shadow is going into the 7 play point territory with 2 evolution orbs, 14 health is not a lot. 14 health is not a lot at all.
And we know Tizin, as we mentioned, actually that's something interesting, that both of these lists, as they take damage, they're keeping that damage. This is Karabos. It's a very powerful card in this matchup. It's just Karabos from being ahead all game can be absolutely devastating. But as we're about to see, a Karabos when things are still a bit volatile and Tizin is being pushed back onto his back foot every time Sada gets a tempo evolution like this one, it's going to be difficult to see him get much leeway out of it, even though its body will be very large.
Man, look at that turn. Absolutely huge. And the big problem here is, even if you Karabos, you haven't pushed your opponent low enough to really, what do you draw to even control the scenario, right? Next turn, Ector comes down, and how do you respond? You can't, you know? Okay, so he takes down the 4-1, right? That means he gets 2, 4, plus 6. He gets 10 plus 2 on the evolve roll, so he's dead.
He's simply dead.
Yep. And this is kind of the reality of, he kept both Karabos, he kept Dance of Death, and I really think that that mulligan was very key. You know, obviously he could have mulliganed all of those cards and still not gotten anything, but he definitely reduced his chances.
Yeah. As you can see, he got to his turn 5, and it wasn't Dance of Death. It was Mountaineer Captain that he had to go for. He got to turn 6, he kept that Karabos, he made the call that it was important in this matchup to have. He played it on curve, and that was it. That was the end of the game.
Yep.
Sada was able to put up enough on board, enough pressure the entire game just to have it right there with his first Yaktar.
Yeah.
So I think being on the play there was something that worked out very well in Sada's favor. And Tizin, perhaps just in the mulligan phase, didn't consider that well enough.
Yep.
As always, keeping Karabos going second, just simply into an opponent's turn 7 as Shadow. This is very, very rough.
By the same token, match is never over till it's over.
Indeed.
Right? Ramp Dragon is now the last obstacle that Sada has to get through before he gets crowned the champion. He is 2-1 over Tizin right now. Seems like he's definitely in the advantage. Ramp Dragon has twice to kind of draw into its ramp. And I think the reason why this is such a great deck here, Ramp Dragon is because you have this amount of consistency. If you get their average curve, you guarantee yourself at least a solid breadth of options and at least a good shot. You know, a good amount of ways to play out the scenario.
I think it's actually very, very fitting that Sada's final deck he has to win with is the one that most represents his philosophy as a player. Dragon is grindy, it is consistent. The way he's going to be playing it here is going to be very methodical.
So this is absolutely incredible. This is kind of the best. Oh my god, look at that hand for Sada. So he is on the play as well. That's super important. I think Tizin really would have preferred to be on the plate, especially with the cards he has in hand. Now, here's a trap, right? I think Isla will really help Sada avoid this scenario, but if you ramp too much and don't put enough on board, there is a way that you get run over. But I think he should be fine. 2 Dragon Oracles, Isla as well, is going to really help control the situation.
Alright, Sada has a lot of very good draws to get off of here. Bahamut, Polyphonic Roar, ways to end the game, but not really what he's looking for. I think after he gets all of this ramp in, after he draws up into Draconic Fervor, he'd like to put down Sybil and start stabilizing. Yeah. Tizin is not giving him an easy time about this.
Yep. Now the big thing here is Tizin is going to go in with an Evolution Orb, and he needs to make maximum use of this. Oh, Sybil coming down, but no heal.
Right.
No heal on the Sybil. This is a big turn for Tizin right now. He really needs to turn something around, something significant here. Otherwise, the next turn, there's so many options that Sada can go for, and his ramp is already pumping him up to 7.
Sada is in overflow as Tizin just merely reaches his first evolution point, but it is either player's game. They're going completely in with
value trade,
the ways they want to win. Right.
Yeah, and I like that. You don't need the ramp. You get the ramp in many other ways. Face. Wow. Okay.
Gets rid of it. He says, I don't want you trading with this. I'll give you the play point. If you, perhaps he even made the call that if he traded it into a 1-2 instead of a 2-1, maybe he's not looking for an option there. He's not looking for anything that costs 8.
Not even the opportunity to play around Salamander. You know, this is just, I mean, he's taking the gamble. He doesn't have it. Maybe he top decks it. No.
Tizin completely calling here that he knows the danger of being this far behind in play.
Wow, you ramp? Are you safe?
He wants to go.
The one way you lose is if you let this board swing again.
Absolutely. He goes up to 13.
So he has DOD, that's 2. He's going to take down 1 card here, and that's going to be the 3-4 for sure, unless he takes down a non-evolved card.
So Dance of Death is 2. He evolved, and that's going to be
6, 8,
almost
10.
He's very close. But he doesn't have the damage in hand he needs to finish Surre off if he just plays out a Bahamut here, or plays his Israfil and evolves it to clear.
He has a second Dance of Death, so Bahamut is actually playing right into his hands. I think he's totally fine with that.
I think Sada, knowing the way he plays, he realizes Bahamut is not safe. I think he's going to go for the Israfil.
Yep. Needs to be. You need to heal yourself up.
Makes no qualm about this, says, I want to be in this game longer. I want to try my best to win this matchup. I'm going to stay in it. I'm going to heal. Though he's going to drop so far for it.
Yep. Oh my god, I think Tizin might have gassed out. What has enough throughput to kind of finish this game out?
I was about to actually say this would be a very amazing play from Tizin. It's very interesting. So he decides simply to activate Karabos. He doesn't mind losing the body. Doesn't need it. He has that damage coming through. But he keeps Dance of Death here. And that is huge. There are so many cards Sada has that Dance of Death is very readily able to deal with.
The Sybil will continue to heal, and this is absolutely critical that he gets this little bit of heal here. That means he's going to go back up to 9, pulling him out of any kind of weird Razory Claw thing, you know?
There's no types of lethals that are going to be pushed through from 6 play points, and Sada knows that. So he plays patiently. He's not going to try to go for anything huge. Not going to rush out a Polyphonic Roar or anything to just try to end the game. He's saying, I win this as long as I stay in it, and this keeps me in it.
Oh no, I think Sada is well positioned. He's kind of situated himself. A Blood Wolf, the Dance of Death, and I think he doesn't care about the Bahamut dropping. You know, at this point, if the Bahamut drops, so what if he kills your followers? He passes the turn. Oh my god.
Dragon Oracle merely allows him to draw.
We'll see. What is your choice? I think anything defensive is what you want to do, but he has nothing right now.
He could
maybe
play
even just drawing. Yeah, I would say
draws,
just drawing.
then
Okay, so there's no ward.
You're right.
There's no heal.
That is so much potential damage he's playing. He
only needs to do 5.
Right.
He only needs to do 5. Drawing a Razory Claw off the top could end it. And he has 2 draws here. Oh god!
Mountaineer Captain, that doesn't help him.
6.
So
that's Angel. 2 Angel of Words is only 2. Blood Wolf. He has the white board because he can't end it here.
Right, he just... Tizin on the back foot now has been pushed down. He doesn't like this at all, but remembers, all I have to do is stay alive, maybe there's something that can happen here. Sada has 2 Bahamuts, but I don't see these Bahamut's actually being able to attack immediately.
Blazing Breath, still no heal, still no ward. I don't think there's going to be an opportunity to play another Karabos here. Even though that would have been so useful in this scenario, doing ping for 2 every turn. But here's what's important, right? Next turn he's going to go down to 4 if there's no heal. And that pulls him ever closer. Now there's a few other options. Razor Claw is still an option. A second Blood Wolf. He only has 1 left in his deck. He started out with 1 in the early draw.
Right.
There's 1 more in hand, so he only has 1 more to draw here out of 24.
If Sada is at 4, then he's at so much pressure. I'm pretty sure that if he falls to 4 and passes it to Tizin, he's dead.
Yeah.
The Wolf and the Angel of the Word simply does it.
Yeah.
It's also possible that maybe Urius will be somehow useful this game and trying to take up those little parts. So he clears as much as he can.
Yep, he knows he needs to clear, mitigate any opportunity for any kind of lethal.
I think this is an astounding play because he sets up his own.
Yep.
This is going to be very difficult.
This is it. This is the last turn. Oh!
I don't find that this is enough. I think the only acting cards in Tizin's hand are Night Horde, and if he plays that, he doesn't have the play points to play anything else other than Blood Wolf, and that together is just not going to take enough damage away.
Gruff can't clear anything. I think this is it. I think Sada has secured it.
Sada is at tournament point, and this is merely a matter of Tizin realizing it.
Oh my god. And wow, the Karabos 2 with that extra draw was not enough to close it out, just barely short. And let's talk about how insane that mulligan was too. So much ramp. He got everything that he needed, ramped into his options. If he had been 1 turn slower, Tizin would have ran away with this and we would be 2-2 now. But I do think that Sada has put himself in a situation. Oh, and I think he's just living on a dream now.
Right.
Yep.
This is actually kind of heartbreaking. Tizin, a single point.
Oh my god. And the Ambling Wraith. What? On the last draw.
Ambling Wraith.
The Ambling Wraith.
Tizin reached out to the sky. He reached out and he scraped the face of first place. He left a scar with his hand.
Oh man, the Ambling Wraith was 1 card